Hello, my beautiful children of the dung heap. It is once again I, the barbarian dung collector, here to reach you with both an announcement and another Theological Brodex video. And there's the fucking glare again. I got that taken care of. Don't you worry, baby. Okay, so starting with the announcement, and I want to make sure, that this is clear, right? I've scheduled the live stream and whatnot. I've put it on the computer, but I don't know exactly what time it's trying to say is when it happens, because my laptop used to be an EST, and when I originally scheduled it, I wasn't thinking about that, and I put 3 p.m. and then I'm like, oh shit, maybe everyone's gonna think it's fucking 3 p.m. EST, and so I changed my laptop to PST and then tried to change the time, but it was all weird, and it was like, you can't do that. But it would let me change it to like any other time, which I don't really get it, and then I would change it to a time and would put a different time, so I don't know what exactly is the fucking deal there, but it's 3 p.m. PST. 3 p.m. PST. Keep that well in mind, lest you be early, in which case you're gonna have to fucking wait, or if you're late, in which case you won't be watching it live, or you'll be coming in half through or some shit like that. But yeah, 3 p.m. PST, alright? Not EST, not PMS, PS motherfucking T. T as in testosterone, which I am absolutely pumping with. PST. Anyway, in all seriousness, 3 p.m. PST. Now, on to the real content of this video. Theological Brodex, Episode 8, Nithraxu. So, Nithraxu is, I'm not gonna lie, a difficult divinity to tackle, just because, here's the thing. Nithraxu is the thing that has categorized everything. It is the laws of physics, but with a personality. And if I too clearly and in too limited of a way define that personality, it's going to give you all the wrong idea, and it's going to cheapen Nithraxu. You don't want him to be Big Grandfather Time. Hello, my children. You don't want him to be just like a guy. You don't want him to, in real life, I'm somewhat religious Christian, and the fucking, Sky Daddy, that shit's so obnoxious. You don't want Nithraxu to be like the Reddit version of God. You know what I mean? And then on the other end, you don't want to make it so abstract and weird that it just becomes, this is basically just the FT's belief system, but he's giving it to Nithraxu so that he seems fucking non-biased or something. So you don't want to do that either. So you want to have some specific ideas of what it is, but by getting too specific and by getting too clear, you limit Nithraxu, and Nithraxu is the limits, but it itself is not supposed to be super limited. You know what I mean? Sorry, I just drank a bunch of milk. I fucking love milk, dude. But yeah, anyway, so just bear that in mind. Take what I say with a grain of salt, because Nithraxu is supposed to be something vast and unreachable, completely beyond, more than really any of the other Elder creators, except for like Opiate, Ahriman, just Opiate and Ahriman. But the thing with Opiate and Ahriman is like Opiate, Opiate can be any idea. Super advanced ideas that are way beyond your tiny mind, or just smaller ideas. So Opiate can be presented, because there's just so much you can do with an Opiate. It can be presented in a pretty limited, specific way if it wants to appear that way. And Ahriman is at least somewhat constricted by the fact that, you know, he's evil. He's fucking evil and malevolent. And I don't want someone in the comment section. I have a specific friend. I'm not going to say his name out of respect for privacy, but I know for a fact he's there. Actually, theoretically, it's arguable whether or not Ahriman is evil. Shut the fuck up. It's the divinity of demons. It wants to kill everyone. You know, well, philosophically, you know, you know who you are, motherfucker. Oh my goodness. But yeah, so there's at least that. There's at least this mindset you can have with that. But Nithraxu is time. It's not just the divinity of time. It is time, right? So we're getting into the facts section of the video, where I tell you like it is. Because facts don't care about your feelings, gang. So what is Nithraxu? Nithraxu is time. Nithraxu is order. That's the most abstract thing. What does it mean to be order? Not to be orderly, not to just be the God of order, but to be order itself. So that's something we're going to tackle later in the video. So stay tuned, baby. But right now, we're still focused on the straightforward, written down facts. So Nithraxu is time. Nithraxu is order. Nithraxu is the motherfucking laws of physics. Nithraxu is the past, the present, and the future too. Nithraxu is math. It's all of those things. So that means it's this conceptual force of reality itself. The very thing that gives context to the very concept of existence. It is existence. It is similar, I'll tell you, in Catholicism, a term they have for our God, for the Christian God, is ipsum esse, which is being itself. Now, I'm not saying you should make Nithraxu the Christian God, far from it, but keep that term in mind. Ipsum esse, being itself. Not a being, but the very concept of being itself. That's a great conceptualization of what Nithraxu is. What else? So that's dominions and what it is. It is its dominions because it's an elder creator, and it's the elemental force of time. So time in Kvegathale is a real, tangible thing. It's not a concept people made up. It exists completely independent of your perception of it. Doesn't matter whether you're aware of time or not. It exists, and it's a thing. It's made of stuff. It is real. It is a real, tangible thing, and it's an elemental force in the world, and it is Nithraxu. And so bear that in mind. It's like a river pushing you forward. You know, swimming, but it's actually many rivers, all coming out from that great lake, and that is Nithraxu. The past, the present, and the future as well. I forget what that's from. That's from a Disney movie or something, from like a song. But moving on from what exactly it is, what it values. Now, Thraxu does not exactly teach its followers to be benevolent, but it directly forbids malevolence. You are not to be cruel. You are not supposed to intentionally hurt others simply for your own benefit. So there's where we see some of the more specific, some of the unique personality of this divinity beyond just an impersonal embodiment of time and order, in that it teaches against malevolence. So cruelty, being unnecessarily rude, hurting people for your own benefit are all bad. So there's a certain aspect of maybe not compassion that the divinity itself has, but a certain aspect of compassion that it teaches its followers. Furthermore, it teaches reason. To be unreasonable, to be irrational is a sin to Nathraxu. So obviously logic, being thoughtful, and using your senses is all something that is expected of the followers, which this put together with the anti-malevolence gives the vibe that, yeah, Nathraxu is this straightforward, level-headed entity with an ultimately positive goal for the world. It wants to preserve the world, and I would say not for its own benefit. I would say Nathraxu is genuinely altruistic based on this information. Also the fact that, honestly, there's a lot more Nathraxu could do to fuck over the gods rather than just siding with the trolls. But he gave them thrones. It allowed them to get power when it could have prevented them, which leads me to believe Nathraxu is not petty. So if you look through the information, Nathraxu is not petty. Nathraxu is not trying to make these political enemies, although it does not like the gods, for they sinned against its children, and they trapped its children in hell, baby. And so it is quite angry with that, but it's a level-headed divinity. It does not act on that anger. If it does have anger, then it should be something subtle. The anger of time is a patient anger, especially if it is confident that it can succeed, which I'm sure Nathraxu is. So it's not going to go, you can't do that. It's going to step back and be able to deal with that. Okay, so there's some of its dogma is to, guard the secrets of time. So it's a secretive divinity. There's it is the divinity of the occult in Kvagathale, which is very different than real world conceptions of the occult, which is basically, from my view, just people either worshiping demons or worshiping nothing. But in Kvagathale, it's very different. So throw out your real world consensus, whether you're a fucking insane radical crusader like me, and I'm really not that religious, but I just kind of exaggerate it for fun. Or if you're a dumbass pagan Wiccan, thinks you're so cool, secrets of the occult, I know magic. You don't. But whether or not you're an insane dumbass, deranged religious fanatic like myself, or an insane dumbass, deranged atheist or occultist, throw all your conceptions out the window, because the occult is something entirely different in Kvagathale. It is this protection of secrets of reality. It is the knowledges that were made to preserve the world, although many of them have fallen into the hands of the truly wicked, which would of course be your player characters. No, I'm just kidding, although playing evil magi player characters is very fun. But yeah, Nithraxu is teaches to guard those secrets and to teach them to the worthy. So there's this sense that there are those out there who can protect the world, and Nithraxu wants you to find them and get them on your side. But for the people who are untrustworthy, who are too stupid and or malevolent, or just folks who don't have enough discipline, you have to keep the gate shut to them. Don't let them in. Don't let them know. And so there's this secrecy, and there's these ancient brotherhoods and sisterhoods of truth keepers. And Nithraxu does not demand or even want a great deal of worshipers, unlike other divinities. It is very much going quality over quantity with its worshipers, looking for true followers who have the discipline and the understanding to follow through. The only exception would be orcs. The vast majority of orcs, from just fucking ordinary peasants to, powerful orcish matriarchs, they're of course going to be worshiping Nithraxu to some degree. But okay. Also, in Nithraxu's dogma, the ultimate enemy is the night. The ultimate enemy is demons, darkness, evil, wickedness, chaos. And so that is what you're focused on fighting. That is what its followers are taught to fight. So there's the conception of order there. All right. So there are some of the just straight facts, yo. So now we can go into some more abstract information. Starting with Nithraxu's agenda to help you roleplay it, because it has no parents. It besides maybe the void, which is space itself, just that the primordial chaos from which everything arose. But so putting all that aside, agenda. Well, we've already kind of gone into it. Nithraxu wants to preserve the world as long as it can be preserved. It's like a doctor keeping the body alive as long as it can. Maybe that's forever. Maybe not. But Nithraxu isn't going to give up. It's going to keep trying, and it is going to bring followers into that. It is going to teach its followers to protect the world and preserve it at all costs. Furthermore, Nithraxu wants to maintain order in the world. Nithraxu, and not the order of Helena, mind you. Nithraxu's order may often look like chaos to the uninitiated. Bear in mind what divinities Nithraxu considers its allies. Ilanok, Zixthil. These are not necessarily orderly divinities. Every elder creator besides Ahriman. So Igvale, Leviathan. These are not beacons of control and rigidity, but they provide a different kind of order, a natural order. And so, what does that mean? What does that mean? It means that Nithraxu wants to take everything. It wants to take the elements. It wants to take civilizations, nations. It wants to take everything and make sure it's all playing a particular role in the survival of the world. A big wheel. That's what the thrones are for. Because Nithraxu took the lemons, the gods fucking over its plans and its children, and made lemonade. The 77 thrones of divinity, where each divinity would have to play a particular role in the world, even Ahriman's bitch ass. Oh shit, I got spit on my phone. Whatever, that doesn't matter. So that's some basic information about the agenda. I could go into further detail, but really with these elder creators, you wanna stop yourself from, as a creator like myself, from getting too deep down the rabbit hole, because you don't want to end up with a 1-hour video, and also you want to, leave stuff open for these elder creators, lots of interpretation. So that's the agenda. Now, how does Nithraxu view mortals? Well, Nithraxu does not view mortals as these, goodly entities where he loves every single one of them. But he also doesn't view them as, just worms. It cares about mortals, plural, the whole vast group of them, because they play a role in reality. They serve a role in existence. And orcs and other Huldre are, of course, favored, because they at least try to base their societies and existence around serving that role that Nithraxu and the trolls have in mind for them. So keep all that in mind. The sort of mortals Nithraxu favors, the sort of mortals Nithraxu doesn't favor. Although everyone, except for maybe Greys and Acherai, theoretically, emphasis on theoretically, don't get too crazy with this, has the ability to be brought into Nithraxu's plans and to willingly serve Nithraxu, although many people are unknowingly serving Nithraxu. One of Nithraxu's greatest enemies, Helena, is also unknowingly one of its greatest allies by instituting order and control, at least in the areas of civilization. Helena is unknowingly serving Nithraxu's ends. So that's how sort of smart Nithraxu can be with how it deals not only with mortals, but gods. Because bear in mind, a god, when you just think about intellect, a god within the Ring of Fire, when you think about intellect, power, understanding of the world, and control over the world, to compare the power level, take a mortal and a god, right? And a god is to Nithraxu what not a mortal, but an insect is to, well, maybe not an insect. A god is to Nithraxu what a mortal is to a god. They can play a role, but ultimately they are small and unimportant. So that's something important to keep in mind, that Nithraxu is so far beyond the gods. It is the only thing on par with Ahriman. And so they are both up there. It's just these absolute eldritch beings beyond even the elder creators. The other elder creators, I mean. It used to be Ahura Mazda was up there with them, but now Ahura Mazda's ass is dead. So, anyway, moving forward, so it sees mortals, it likes mortals, it cares about mortals, but not on an individual level, and it sees them as very small. They're pieces. They are puzzle pieces, just as every tree, rock, blade of grass, everything in the world is a puzzle piece that can be fit, shifted, and moved, all to ensure the preservation of the world, particularly the natural world, but really the world as a whole. And so part of that, and we'll come back around to the agenda really quick, even though I said I was done with the agenda, Nithraxu wants to control every god and every elder creator, not in the Helena way, not as in I will make you my slaves, but just through getting them in this wheel without them really even knowing it. It's why it bound them. You know, when it wants opiate serving a role, it wants Damar serving a role, Igvale, Morgul, what have you. So even though all these divinities, to a degree, like Nithraxu, they also kind of dislike Nithraxu because they're all kind of like they don't get to have their agendas because they're there to serve Nithraxu's grand design of order and the preservation of the world. So, got all that. Now about Nithraxu appearing to mortals. Never going to happen. Never have a fucking bearded dude show up in your game with a fucking clock. Ooh, I am Nithraxu. That's dumb. That's gay and not in the fun way. No. I have had Nithraxu show up in a game of mine quite recently. It's a game I run for just one player, but it was extremely special, and Nithraxu was showing itself filtered through this character's mindset, filtered through this character's perception, dumbed down in a way this character could understand. And this character is a genius who has seen everything, possibly one of the most just experienced and capable mortals at this point, and it only got a tiny fraction of Nithraxu in the way Nithraxu showed itself. But generally, Nithraxu should only show itself through omens, and even then, not that. Like omens should be rare. Actual mystic messages should be rare. Instead, it should be other oracles or these visions of time, which are more likely sent by trolls or lesser spirits of time who have been commanded to do so by Nithraxu. Nithraxu's knowledge is not given, but sought out by the worthy. And even the most worthy, even Nithraxu's avatar, Iman Vas, he's literally connected with Nithraxu. He has basically melded with Nithraxu, and he's insane. He's insane now. Even though he's the avatar, right? He's fucking crazy. Because you can't contain that. You can't deal with that. So to protect him from being even more crazy, even Iman Vas doesn't fully understand what the fuck is going on. Because it's just not possible. Like a dragon would not be capable of fully understanding what's going on with Nithraxu. Igvale is not capable of understanding what's fully going on with Nithraxu. You know what I mean? So your catalysts, sure as shit, aren't gonna really know at all what the fuck is going on. So you got to be careful in the way you play it up. You have oracles, you have followers of Nithraxu who are pious to him. They're going out to time spirits. That when they're speaking, they don't speak to Nithraxu. They don't speak to this mighty divine entity. They speak to this fucking magical frog, right? Who's like really enigmatic, and they barely understand that frog. And then when they're a caster status 10 oracle, they understand the trolls and that frog and the magical spirits. But they still don't get Nithraxu. But right, so you have them going. They go into this bog, and they look for the time spirits. And they see this big magical frog who's like, "You have found me, and you have come to seek wisdom." No, don't have him speak like that. I was trying to do Kermit, but that sounded like Fozzie Bear. No, he's like, "You have traveled far. You have found me, a simple temporal spirit. I can teach you. And that you have that sort of thing, that going to spirits never, ever should catalysts speak to Nithraxu, except for in absurdly special moments. And even then, again, it should be a tiny little shard. Did my Just a sec. Okay, hopefully that's all good. But yeah, it should be a tiny little shard in the Thraxu, if ever you speak to it directly. Otherwise, it should, be spirits and whatnot. Okay, so now let's talk protagonist, background force, antagonist. In most games, Thraxu should be a background force and can make a very interesting background force in that you really don't bring it up. It's just something that's always going on in the background. You go to the City of Trade, and these blue-robed people are, bringing this thing wrapped up in paper or whatever, wrapped up in cloth, to this big temple with a giant clock, and you're like, oh, what's that? And they're like, doesn't matter. Just these weird secrets going on in the background. You're like, what the fuck? And it might draw you in, and it might no longer be a background force, or you might just be like, I don't know what that is, but those guys make me uncomfortable. You fucking, I'm not trying to get in on some crazy clock shit, and then you can also find using it as a background force, especially if you have catalysts who are not super knowledgeable in the occult, find weird stuff that relates to Thraxu. Like, find weird sci-fi shit, but don't explain it as sci-fi shit. Just explain it from the perspective of the characters, describe it, and then don't explain what it is. And they're like, what the fuck? Like you've got basically like a fucking machine with like lights, or it might be run down and destroyed and it's overgrown and doesn't work anymore. But they have no idea what it is or what to do with it. And that can be particularly intriguing. Golly. Sorry. Now, what you can also do with Thraxu as a background force is have sources of knowledge, right? Because Thraxites, they know a lot of shit that they're going to hide from you. But the thing is, if you've got a bunch of people who seem smart, but they won't tell you anything, that's suspicious. Which is why everything outside of magic and outside of the secret occult knowledge they look into, they're going to be pretty open to share information with you. These guys are going to be history teachers. They're going to be math teachers. So they can be great in your game for exposition, as long as you're not an annoying asshole about it. Don't spend like fucking 40 hours on exposition. They can be great for if you have a player who really wants to learn the lore, have them show up and add in bits of information. They can be great for, characters developing skills in an organic and interesting way. If you got a player who's doing that academics angle, maybe throwing a cleric and not a cleric, but an oracle of Thraxu. The player may never know this individual is an oracle or even religious at all or capable of any magic or mysticism. They just know they're smart and they know a lot about, particular subjects, and they get educated, they get erudited, whatever you call it. And so it helps develop that character. Making clocks, buying a clock can be cool in Kvegathale. Like, that shit is insane. Like, Kvegathale is mainly, like, Bronze Age, medieval tech, but you can get, like, a full-on, like, clock. Like, yeah, it's still an analog clock, but it's a fucking clock. Which I would say many kingdoms outlaw that shit. Like, that's evil. That's That's occult magics. But not all. You're going to find clocks and trade and flame dance and Ifalpu, nor Wonka. Think about that. You have these primitive fucking orcs who live in nature with fucking trees and dirt and bushes. As you saw in one of those trees is like a fucking analog clock. So that's a great way to have the background force of Nithraxu, just bringing out the weird of Kvegathel, bringing out the bizarre, if you will, and you shall. All right, now, protagonist. Nithraxu makes a great protagonist divinity. I mean, what's more easy to get on board with and have some faces other than let's save the fucking world. Let's stop Armon from destroying it. Let's make it so not everyone fucking dies, so that people can continue to live, so that the world can continue to exist, and people's dreams and desires can be achieved, and order can be maintained, and not have everything turn into a mad, chaotic cesspit before everything ends. That's great. And you can run with that, and you can have these oracles reach out to the players. You have players learning to follow the way of the oracle, learning to put aside malevolence and unreason and irrationality, and learning to be logical and benevolent and working to help and protect people in the world itself. It can be great. And it's don't misinterpret this as Nithraxu being a bad protagonist. Nithraxu is an amazing protagonist. It's just there's not a lot to say about it. It's pretty straightforward. It's the good guy. Ever since Ahura Mazda died, Nithraxu is the big good, as TV tropes would say. So, okay, antagonist. Interestingly enough, Nithraxu is also an awesome antagonist. First of all, if your characters are evil characters or villainous or do bad things, or even if they just side with many divinities, you're going to run afoul of oracles. You're a Hell Knight trying to maintain order and law in a city or a town. You are a Pelganite trying to establish your civilization. Well, you're not on board with the oracles. And you're going to have an opposition towards Nithraxu, even if you don't know it. And its followers are going to be coming after you. Its followers are going to be opposing you and what you're trying to do. So in that way, it's an antagonist. You play, warlocks. You worship Ahriman or the Court of Darkness. You're playing evil characters. Well, it's easy to get evil characters' sympathy. Just show what they believe and show how they're fighting for what they believe. Show their families and get the audience rooting for them. And yeah, they'll root for them against the good guy. It doesn't matter that he's the good guy. They're the protagonists. But also bear in mind, you can go a more wicked route with Nithraxu. And somebody said I should be less of an Andrew Wood simp. But fuck that. I was recently watching an Andrew Wood video, and he was talking about divinities and forgotten realms, and he mentioned Mistra, who's like lawful neutral. He has the followers of Mistra be kind of bad guys, and I was thinking about that, and you can sort of do that with Nithraxu and its followers, and have this sort of, you're a Valexian, you're a Nijakthian, you're maybe not even super religious towards any divinity, but you're a simple man with your farms and your fields, and guess what? You are nothing to Nithraxu. You are overlooked, and its followers may even see you as an uninteresting obstacle. You are a flyover. You are you don't matter. And when you have this entity and its followers who are dedicated to knowledge and truth and protecting the world, and so, well, unfortunately, for the good of the temple, well, we have to, get rid of this little farmland, let's just send the farmer way into the past or way into the future, and who gives a fuck, and we can take his... He doesn't matter. Oh, he spotted us doing magic. He has children. We'll kill him. Oh, fuck it. We'll kill his children and his wife too, just in case, we don't want any rumors getting out. Don't worry. It's no big deal. They don't matter. They're unimportant. They're just grains of sand. So yeah, that's the thing. You can have goodly characters who oppose Nithraxu, because Nithraxites are not malevolent. They're not cruel, but they don't give a fuck about you and your family for the most part. Again, you are just one piece amongst many, and they will happily sacrifice you for the preservation of the world. And showing that uncaring, almost sociopathic dedication to their morality can be a great way to build them up as antagonists, and to build Nithraxu up as a grand antagonist. Anyway, that's my video on Nithraxu. Oh my gosh, you guys, Nithraxu's not even my favorite divinity, not even close, but there's just so much I could say. There is so much I could say about Nithraxu, but the video is over 40 minutes now. The lighting has gotten super shitty. I don't know why my phone hasn't adjusted. But yeah, I can't go further on this. So build on what I've said. Do a lot of your own shit. Don't just do what I say. These videos are meant as seeds to be planted. I am the man. You are the woman. I plant the seed. Now you will give birth. No, that was unnecessarily sexual. No, but what I'm saying is I give you this stuff, but you don't even need to use anything I say. All I'm suggesting is I've been FTing for a long time. I'm experienced. I'm very passionate about... Oh, can I raise the lighting this way? Did I make it worse? Yeah, I made it worse. I'm very passionate about this game, so I've thought about it a lot. So I'm just giving my advice, my perspective, and I am now being consumed by Armon. So I will now leave you, as all hope is lost. The sun is dead. Hope herself has been devoured by Loptif, the apotheosis, the divinity of lies, and the weak divinities of light hold meekly onto what power they have left, while the gods of order and freedom bicker over how they shall rule their territories, their pathetic dominions, their castles of sand, and all that stands between my master and his goal is the wretched, rigid Nithraxu. But soon, the law shall be broken, and time will slow and stop and sputter to a halt, and my master, Ahriman, in his divine perfection, shall reign supreme and destroy the entire world in forkan Karin Kricharon.